What if Nikola Tesla's inventions revolutionized the world? Hello, everyone, and welcome to What If History, the show where we hop across alternate timelines to see what might have been if history had turned left instead of right. I'm your host, Colin Holmes, and today, we're plugging into a world electrified by one man's vision: wireless power, courtesy of Nikola Tesla. Strap in, because in this episode, entire cities crackle with free-flowing energy, armies wage war with lightning, and our planet teeters on a humming coil of endless possibility and endless danger. Picture, if you will, a world lit not by filament bulbs tethered to power lines, but by invisible streams of energy surging through the very air. A realm in which the name Tesla rings as loud and vital as any king, president, or general. A century ago, our timeline took a different fork in the road, catapulting us into an age of ephemeral power. Free, yet never truly free. An age when towers rose like monoliths of crackling promise, only to become beacons of an unending arms race. In short, my friends, we arrived in a world we thought we wanted, only to discover the price was our collective soul. Let us begin in 1910, the year that changed everything. Nikola Tesla, the lanky Serbian visionary with an otherworldly gaze, completed his project at Wardenclyffe Tower. This was no idle curiosity, no carnival sideshow. By day, the tower hummed like a hive, scattering arcs of white-blue electricity into the open sky. By night, it stood as a lighthouse of possibilities, broadcasting wireless power to thousands of astonished onlookers. The newspapers hailed Tesla as the Wizard of Long Island, praising the demonstration of a brand new era. No cables, no coal plants, just towers humming with electromagnetic energy. Of course, the corporate suits with greased hair and blood in their eyes took notice. Edison, Morgan, Westinghouse, names that once financed Tesla, now lurked in the shadows, muttering about patents, profits, and sabotage. But in those early days, optimism ran hot. Cities clamored for their own Wardenclyffes, begging Tesla to erect his humming towers on every skyline. By 1912, Manhattan sprouted a forest of smaller coils. Chicago followed suit, then Los Angeles. Each tower was a promise to the public: you will never sit in darkness again. But dear listener, reality is rarely so pure. Where there is fortune to be made, there is also betrayal. The oil barons, reeling from the spectre of a future without their black gold, funneled money into sabotage. Labs burst into flame at midnight. Engineers were found floating in the East River, and government men with cold eyes and loaded sidearms demanded cooperation. Free electricity, it turned out, was as threatening to established powers as an unsheathed knife. Then 1914 rolled around, and Europe took up arms. Across the Atlantic, an Austrian prince lay dead, and the nations lined up to slaughter each other in a war beyond measure. Tesla's technology, so lauded for its peaceful brilliance, found a new, darker application. Soldiers marched into battle wearing specially rigged helmets that collected atmospheric power. They called these men shock troopers, for they carried literal lightning strapped to their backs. Imagine the horror of a trench, once a filthy ditch for bullets and mustard gas, now turned into a corridor of electrified wire and thrashing bodies. Arcs of crackling brilliance leapt from coil rifles to men who died shrieking, their nerves alight with lethal energy. Meanwhile, in the skies above the Western Front, Zeppelins, floating behemoths of hydrogen and metal, drifted overhead, bristling with Tesla-based cannons. At night, the horizon would strobe with unnatural brilliance, as if the very heavens had forsaken the soldiers below and unleashed endless lightning upon their heads. When word reached American shores, newspapers sanitized the horrors into stories of light shows in Europe, neglecting the seared flesh, the charred mud, the unholy stench of ozone and death. Peace, when it finally came, was no true peace. Corporate warfare simmered beneath treaties and handshakes. Every major nation had gleaned some knowledge of Tesla's breakthroughs. Patents were stolen, scientists were coerced, and governments, still drunk on power, vied to erect bigger and better towers. By the mid-1920s, the Tesla energy relays spanned continents. London glowed with wirelessly charged street lamps. Berlin powered entire factories via invisible streams of current. Tokyo erected a tower at the edge of the harbor, humming in harmony with the crashing waves. But soon, the entire system had become a labyrinth of ownership, espionage, and forcibly nationalized towers. In America, the newly minted Bureau of Electrical Regulation flexed its bureaucratic muscles, demanding oversight of every last electron. Freedoms clashed with regulation. Riots sparked in the streets when entire neighborhoods lost power due to sabotage or corporate double dealings. Blackouts meant more than an inconvenience. They meant chaos, theft, even murder, as desperate citizens fought to tap a stolen current in the flickering gloom. Then came World War II, a conflict shaped not by the atomic bomb, but by Tesla's ultimate legacy. The Nazis, enthralled by rumored lightning weapons, poured resources into the creation of the Volksturmark cannons, massive coils built on train platforms that could pivot and fire thunderbolts against columns of enemy tanks. Eyes wide with hubris, Hitler envisioned an unbreakable fortress of electric walls along the Atlantic. Meanwhile, the Allied powers developed Operation Thunderclap, sending soldiers onto beaches armed with newly engineered coil rifles that spat controlled arcs of white-hot current. D-Day, once known for gunfire and blood, now erupted in electromagnetic fury, an eerie display of neon ghosts crackling across the surf. The death toll soared beyond imagination. Cities bombarded by Tesla storm engines, devices capable of generating perpetual thunderstorms overhead, spent weeks under black, roiling skies that spat forked lightning onto rooftops, setting entire boroughs ablaze. Civilians huddled in basements, powerless in the face of man-made storms. And the scientists, those men and women who had once dreamed of a better tomorrow, were conscripted into the madness, forced to perfect devices that turned peaceful electricity into unstoppable carnage. When the dust settled on a battered Europe and a smoldering Pacific, the emerging superpowers found themselves in a new standoff. The Cold War, but not with nuclear bombs. No, in this alternate timeline, the swords were still arcs of lightning. America and the Soviet Union built ever larger wireless arrays, culminating in satellites loaded with Tesla coils pointed back at Earth. Orbital doomsday machines capable of crippling entire countries by frying their energy grids. The slightest provocation risked a global blackout that could plunge civilization into a new dark age overnight. Spies, double agents, and assassins became a fixture in the back alleys of Berlin, Beijing, London, and New York, each armed with their own brand of surgically precise electrical mayhem. Fast forward to our uneasy 21st century, where the hum of energy saturates every corner of the globe. Skyscrapers shoot arcs of power into the sky like man-made auroras. Cars, planes, even personal devices run on intangible currents. Corporations don't just provide power, they rule it. Conspiracies swirl over every major blackout, from Hong Kong to Los Angeles. Did some clandestine group hijack a frequency? Did a rogue state direct an EMP burst from an orbital array? Did a disgruntled CEO of an energy conglomerate flick a switch out of spite? So, my friends, this is our world. A world built on the shaky promise of free, boundless electricity. A resource that turned out to be anything but free. In every coil's hum, you can hear the faint whisper of paranoia. Step outside on a cloudy day, and you might catch a flicker of lightning that doesn't seem so natural. Maybe it's the front line of an invisible war, waged by powers and principalities that value dominance above human life. Picture that, if you will, a promise that turned a visionary dream into a perpetual arms race, a silent storm raging overhead. The lesson is plain, the caution plain enough for any rational mind to understand. In the hands of the greedy, even the purest energy can become a weapon. So be mindful of the spark you ignite, because in this dimension, and perhaps in the one you call home, absolute power still corrupts absolutely. And with that, dear viewer, we close our brief visit to a realm that might have been, a realm lit by arcs of brilliance and overshadowed by the darkest corners of ambition. Step away with caution, for the line between genius and annihilation is thin, and all it takes is one spark to cross it. That, dear listeners, concludes our journey through an electrified 20th century where Nikola Tesla's wildest dreams became our shared reality and our darkest nightmare. Thank you for tuning in to What If History with me, Colin Holmes. If you enjoyed this little detour from our usual timeline, be sure to join us next time when we once again step off the beaten path and take a stroll down the highways of possibility. Until then, stay curious and try not to get caught in the storm.